Hi, everyone. Welcome to Kym Can't Cook, Kym's Kitchen. Welcome to our Friday foodie edition of Patty's Plate. We're supposed to have our friend in the Philippines who is going to be cooking a mung bean smoked fish dish that is one of his favorites in the Philippines, but he has lost electricity and is not expected to get it out back for 36 hours. Imagine being in the dark for 36 hours. That is not fun. So he hopefully will resume and bring you his mung bean smoked fish at some point. But meantime, you have me. Thank goodness we had a little bit of a backup plan here. I had planned to, while he was cooking his mung bean fish dish, which is one of his favorites, I was planning to cook one of my favorite fish dishes, which is Tuscan fish, which is a play on Tuscan chicken. I don't know if you're familiar with Tuscan chicken. It is one of my favorite dishes. It's one of my dad's favorite dishes. My dad loves anything that has some sort of sauce, which has made it really difficult in cooking for him with having heart disease. And having an MTHFR mutation, which makes it difficult for him to turn food into fuel. So he can't have any gluten, so no flours or anything, maybe a little bit of almond flour or such, but that just doesn't really work well. I usually use to thicken sauces instead xanthan gum or arrowroot, but I have since found a very different option other than using almond milk or cashew milk or even oat milk, and then adding the xanthan gum or the arrowroot to thicken those liquids into a little bit more of a thicker sauce. Um, I have discovered a walnut cream sauce, and I'm going to show you how to make that. You'll have to stay tuned to learn how to use that instead of using a whole milk or whole cream or whatever is required for a regular Tuscan chicken dish. Also, in a Tuscan chicken dish, you typically have onions and garlic and mushrooms and tomatoes and spinach. At least that's in my version. So I have those prepared. And I'm going to get the garlic going in just a moment. I like to fresh press my garlic. I don't like to use general fresh garlic. We have to pound it to open it because I'm really just not that talented. So I get the garlic that's already, they're in the little packages. They're taken out of their little husk and then they're still whole. I'm going to show you. It's going to take me, it's going to be like watching paint and dry. Kym actually crushing garlic, but that's just what's going to happen very, very soon. So hopefully you'll stay with us through that. And then for dessert, actually, I am preparing chocolate covered strawberries. We just got 2 batches of the first strawberries out here that are really in season, beautiful. They're red. Strawberries are really, really healthy for you. In order to make this chocolate covered strawberries just a little healthier is I use a very, very dark chocolate. I use an oat milk dark chocolate because I'm actually anaphylactic to any dairy. So I have to use an oat milk chocolate chip, which is in this case, it uses, oh goodness, it uses I call it Buddha fruit type of sugar in there just to give it a little bit of sweetness, but there's not much in it. And then I mix that with some coconut oil, organic coconut oil, and it makes it so that my strawberries, which are in the freezer right now preparing, when I bring them out, the coconut oil will make it so it creates a magic shell around my strawberries. So we'll get to that as well. Okay, I think we should get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is I want to get my garlic and I want to get my onions going. And so those take just a little bit longer. I like them to be a little bit softer. I like them to season the pan. And so we're going to go ahead and start the onions. I just used probably about a quarter cup of onions. I don't like to use too much. I do have a tiny bit of an allergy to them. I'm low on the spectrum in allergies to those, but my allergist says I should not cut them completely out of my diet. I should just use a little bit of them just to maintain or build a resilience to them, is the way she phrased it. So I do use a little bit of onion, not as much as recipes call for, but I do use some. If you like more onion, you can use more onion. The great thing about my recipes is I don't measure a lot of times. I do a lot of things to taste. My mom when she was here and I was cooking for her, bless her heart. Um, she used to say, I absolutely love that, but I bet you can't make it the same way again because I never measure. And she was absolutely right. And that was very frustrating for her because she would say, I like it exactly like that. And she'd come into the kitchen with an index card and a pen and say, I want you to write that down. I want you to write that down right now. Now measure it. So, um, every once in a while I did that, but most of the time I don't really measure. I tried to do the best I could here with this particular recipe. You can see over here, I have some of my stuff actually measured out. This is literally pigs are flying because I normally do not have anything measured out. I just kind of go with the way I feel. Doesn't mean it always tastes good. Doesn't mean it's the right way to go. It's just I do not have any sort of patience for measuring. It's really frustrating. I also do not have any patience for plating. So you will not see anything pretty. You will not see fancy chef skills here in my kitchen. Joining me today, you might hear from our wonderful live studio audience. I know Marcia's here and Nancy's here. I think Marcia's cooking. I think Nancy was cooking. And Thomas is here. He was on the treadmill last I was looking and I could see. So if you have questions or you have comments or you simply have, oh, and I think I see Douglas. Douglas is here too, and Peggy is here. But if you have any questions or comments, or you simply want to
Kym, I've got one.
My cooking, please do.
I got one, Kym. What
Yes.
what oil are you using olive oil to cook that in?
I sprayed it with a little bit of avocado spray, and then I'm going to add a very an early harvest, hand-picked, cold-pressed olive oil that has a high cooking tolerance, but yet it is very, very high in polyphenols and oleocanthols. I get it from a place called Amphora Nueva, and I like to get the olive oil that is a little bit more fresh versus just on store shelves, because a lot of the oils that you find on store shelves, especially in the clear bottles, are rancid. And they absolutely have not only do they not have health benefits, but they can be harmful to your body and cause inflammatory reactions that you may not see. So it's really important to, if you're going to invest in anything, invest in that olive oil and get a really good one. So in a few minutes, you'll see there was one that we just picked up the other day from whom we call Dr. Snake Oil. He's the manager over at the San Anselmo store for Amphora Nueva. They actually do have the healthiest olive oil in the world there. One of their versions is the healthiest. It was proven global 3 years in a row as the healthiest olive oil in the world. And actually, my dad and I take shots of that every single day. Just a little shot. And I believe Nancy, your doctor, Dr. James Antizana, over in Charlotte, North Carolina, prescribes that olive oil for his patients.
Mm-hmm. I have a bottle. I sent away for it from California.
So. You did? It kicks you in the throat, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it does.
And the QR code right there on your screen. Okay, just wanted to make sure when you're using Zoom and you're going on live stream, it flashes up on the screen that you are live. And so then I couldn't see what was going on. I can't see everyone because I had this card up in the middle of my screen that says, hey, everybody, we are going live. And so you have to click got it so that you can see the full screen again. So sorry about that little break there. Right now, again, we have a lot of garlic. I'm a big fan of garlic. So I actually use 2 full cloves of garlic in here because garlic is heart healthy. And especially when you're crushing it fresh, it is really, really healthy. So I never hold back on the garlic. I am going to grab some of that olive oil I told you about. This one in particular is Frantoio Leggino. So it sounds like an Italian one. And I'm going to add some to the bottom of this pan. And I can be a little bit more generous with this olive oil than I can any other olive oil that I've used in the past. I still don't use too much, but I do like to get that going. Okay. I have it on fairly low heat. I'm gonna turn it up to about medium. I have my fish. I get my fish from Wild Alaskan in Alaska. And the reason we do that is because they actually size it even for us. We only like to get 4 to 5 ounces. And a lot of times what my dad and I'll do is we'll just share one because you only need about 3 to 4 ounces of protein. So we'll usually just share one and then we'll just fill our plates with lots and lots of vegetables. And sometimes we'll serve it over some quinoa or we'll serve it over some riced cauliflower. You can get that in the freezer. And Jolly Green Giant has one of my favorites that you can get that has like, some onions and asparagus in it. And so it adds even more vegetables to your dish. And it fills you up too, which is really good. Okay, I'm starting to hear this sizzle. Well, this is, so Peggy, can you show the name of the olive oil and where to purchase? So again, it's Amphora Nueva, AMPHORA NUEVA.com. And I think it's /Marin, but you want the Marin store. You want the San Anselmo store. And then what you do is you say, I was told to talk to Dr. Snake Oil. That's all you say. And you may get, especially for the weight of my heart, they know exactly what our doctors, are using and recommending to their patients. But of course, before you try anything new, you should always check it with your own healthcare provider to make sure that it is in fact something that is right in your particular situation with your presentation of peripheral artery disease, heart disease, or whatever that might ail you. Okay, can you see? Yes, you can. So what we're going to do is, while the garlic and the onions are in here, they're sauteing, they're getting soft, soaking up some of the olive oil. I want to get the cream at least done. As you know, and I mentioned earlier, the Tuscan chicken, or in our case, we're making Tuscan fish. They use a heavy cream. And I can't use that. I'm anaphylactic to dairy, and plus dairy can be very inflammatory. So we try to steer people away from dairy as much as possible. And we don't like a lot of processed nut milk. So when you're buying a nut milk or an oat milk, make sure that it has just the real raw ingredients, right? Cashews, oats, and salt and water. Or I heard that there's one called I use Forager, or there's one called Califia that is now following in the footsteps of Forager and getting rid of all of the thickeners and things like that, because we don't need the thickeners. And, we just want the almonds, the salt, and the water. Like, that's it. But for me, I actually have a nut milk maker back here. I'm not going to use that right now because it takes a little bit more time. I'm going to show you how to make walnut cream. Now, walnut cream is kind of fun because you can use it as a creamer for your coffee, which is great. And you can add, I have a little bit of pure natural vanilla that I put in there. You can add a little bit of natural maple or honey or something like that if you like it a little bit sweeter. But I don't usually add that to this mixture when I'm making it for a sauce. But you can if you do like it just a little bit sweeter with a little bit less nutty flavor and more sweetness. Okay, so I told you I'm measuring for the very first time. So make sure you take note. Okay, 1 cup of walnuts into my food processor and 3 cups of water. And then I'm going to blend it. It's going to get loud. So I might mute it for a second, and I wondered if Marcia or Nancy, you could take over for just a moment while I mute me and I go ahead and blend. Unless you want to, if everyone wants to listen to the blender and me scream over the blender, I'm happy to do that too.
You're fine.
Okay, we're gonna listen to the blender then. Whoops. I'm having a little bit of a problem here. And I'm not sure why. This is quite interesting. I've never had this happen before. And I'm not sure why it's happened. Is the water leaked out the bottom. And I don't know why.
Your seal's not tight, Tim. The seal
This
isn't
is-
tight.
This is all in there tight. Let me see if I grab the right one. I'm going to ask for a mulligan, and we're going to try this again. I'm going to pour my nuts into another thing. And I think I know exactly what I did. But I'm not going to tell you what I did. I think I poured it right down the center. So let me just double check. Yep. That's what I did. That was really smart. Okay. We will not do that again. I told you, this is like the comedy of errors edition of Food for Thought. How many of you tell me your worst kitchen nightmare while I'm cleaning up here? Because I don't want to feel alone, as if I'm the only one where mishaps happen. We obviously know that I will never make it onto the Food Network unless they want me to do a show about what not to do in the kitchen. But I would love to hear if anyone has had a kitchen nightmare. What's the funniest thing that you've ever done in the kitchen? Nancy?
Probably tried to brine a turkey in a whole lot of liquid, and I don't know what ended up happening, but the liquid went all over the place. So that was a mess. So our turkey was so heavy and big, it was terrible. And it was like in all that liquid to try to lift it. So I don't know. Douglas is saying 911 kitchen help here. So
Yeah, that was really fun, Douglas.
Kim, what kind of fish are you using? You didn't say.
So let me just put this in here. Okay, we're gonna try this again. I'm gonna put less water to start and go from there. So I'm actually using halibut. So my dad and I actually get it's Douglas again, 911 kitchen help, speed dial. That's definitely what I need. But I'm using halibut. We usually will get wild salmon, wild halibut, and we'll get some shrimp just as a treat, and we'll get the wild tuna, and we'll alternate. We usually have fish 3 times a week. We have vegetables, just vegetables 2 days a week. Sometimes then we'll have chicken, and for my dad, his dietitian actually wants him to have a steak because he's very anemic and he needs they want him to have more red meat. So for him, that's what's right for him, and we'll serve that once a week for him as well. Of course, it's always in portions, but this is the wild halibut that we're going to be having. And it's the one I like, a whitefish. And Douglas is saying that he uses tilapia. That's fine too. Any whitefish is fine. Peggy is mentioning making salmon pate in a blender, and she turned it on while she had the spoon in it, and it started to rain salmon pate as well as hitting the ceiling. Oh my gosh, Peggy, that must have been an absolute mess. And you know what? I did that same thing. I actually accidentally, I was trying to, in my smoothie, I was taking a knife and I was kind of jamming just a little bit, and I just pushed it down too far. It slipped on a frozen piece of fruit, and it just hit the bottom, and it just tore up the knife inside there, and the whole smoothie had to be thrown out. What a nightmare. Okay, so this looks like it's okay. We're gonna blend. And you want it to be completely liquid. So it's going to take a bit just to get it completely liquefied. Yeah, it'll take a second, but you know, the recipe that I was using and when I did it before, it took a while to do it. They say that you don't need a cheesecloth. I still use a cheesecloth with this because it's still, I think, maybe I'm not doing it completely right, but I think that there's still some grains that are in there. Just want to see how it's looking. Oh my God, it is so good. I mean, I just think that I love the nutty flavor. And so when you actually have, you know, the walnuts and you're using it as a creamer for your coffee, I even add a little bit of MCT oil in my coffee and some collagen. But I need to add a little bit more water here.
So
To
how many walnuts do you use? I mean, just a bag of walnuts or chopped walnuts or?
I use a cup of walnuts. I'm actually going to transfer it over
All right.
into my blender. I just wanted to use it in my food processor first to get it the initial step done. You can see it's a thick,
Okay.
creamy. It's grainy, so we want to get it processed even more. But I fear this is a very small food processor, and I think we'll have a little bit of a mishap like we did before, adding more liquid. But I love the flavor of it. We're gonna pull
So you have like a
this
cup of,
out.
and then how much water did you put into it? About?
I put in the ratio is typically 1 cup of walnuts and 3 cups of water.
Okay. And you just blend it or use it for, I have a blender, so you just blend it until it's smooth or?
Yep.
Okay.
Because walnuts are very soft. I'm sorry, I'm like licking my fingers. This is so, thank goodness I'm just really cooking for me and my dad. Because this is not, you shouldn't do that. That's just, again, it's what not to do. So
Well,
I'm
I'm
going to add a little bit more water.
Okay.
It's, as I said, 1 cup of walnuts to 3 cups of water.
Okay.
But it just was not fitting in my small Cuisinart. So
Yeah, I try not to use, I try not to eat too much shrimp because it's cholesterol. So, and it's too bad because we can get shrimp right off the boat here, you know?
okay, while that was blending, I just wanted to stir. Don't forget you have the garlic and the onions going. So that's right. This is really creamy. I'm gonna add some more water. So you're gonna have to just based on your blender and your measurement of the walnuts. I mean, I don't know if you can see, it's actually it's creamy. That's really creamy. So for me, I mean, just see the consistency. It's very, oh my God, it is so smooth. You would not believe how smooth this is. So, oh my God, it is really good. I don't even need any vanilla or any sweetener in it or anything. I think with walnuts, I think that they're sweet enough as they are. And I do again like the nutty flavor. I'm gonna add just a little bit more water just to loosen it up a little bit. You don't necessarily have to. When you put it in the plate, I mean in the pan, you can add, I'm gonna add personally, I like to add a little bit of white wine when I cook. It just depends on what you prefer. And what you're allowed to have in your own diet. Every once in a while, I do like to cook with a little bit of white wine and have it reduce. And in fact, while this is blending, I'm going to take a little bit of white wine and put it in there, and I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. I want to show you just how creamy this is. So I'm going to get actually a glass. San Francisco 49ers, baby. Hopefully you're all fans. Look at this. I mean, it's smooth, it's creamy. I mean, it's amazing. And I didn't even add any sort of thickener, no xanthan gum, no arrowroot, no flour, no nothing. I mean, I could even, it's really good. Just saying, it's really good. And I won't gross you out by pouring the rest back. I might take a few sips of that. Okay, so while I was blending that, oh my gosh, that's really good. I got the white wine in my pan. I'm letting that just simmer just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead, because mushrooms do take a little bit longer to cook. I'm going to add, I have about a cup of mushrooms in here, maybe a little bit more, maybe a cup and a half of sliced. I prefer shiitake mushrooms. My taki mushrooms are one of the healthiest. If you like that texture and flavor, you can throw in some chopped maitake mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms are also really good for you. If I'm not putting in oyster mushrooms or maitake mushrooms in here, or shiitakes, you know what I do with the oyster mushrooms is I drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil, and I, sprinkle them with garlic and a little bit of pepper and a little bit of Celtic salt, and I stick them in the oven and I roast them, and they are delicious. They're a wonderful snack. My dad likes to have a little bit of snack with either a mocktail or a cocktail. His dietitian, when he was diagnosed with heart disease, I thought his dietitian approached him in a very smart way. Because he's military guy, captain in the Navy, and he has his habits. He's had 78 years at the time of habits that is credited, and he knows what he likes. And so he went in there and he thought he was just resistant to everything. He was like ready to just him against the world. Like she was the complete enemy. And she stopped, and the first thing she said to him, what is your number one non-negotiable? I can change everything else in your life. I can change every single meal, but there's one thing that I will not change. And I will figure out a way around it. And he said, actually, there are two things. Number one is my coffee in the morning. And number two is I like to have a little martini at night. And sometimes he'll shift. He'll do a martini or he'll do a mocktail. And if you had shown up in previous episodes, our favorite mocktail is a little bit of Sicilian lemon infused white balsamic vinegar in sparkling water. And it's delicious. So delicious. But he likes to have his martini. And she said, okay, I'll make you a deal. You can have your martini. We're limiting you to 2 ounces at night in ice, and you have to have some protein with it or something high fiber. You need to have a snack along with it. You're not just going to do it on an empty stomach because it'll cause your sugar to spike. And so every single night I try and come up with something creative. I've fixed him these bags of nuts. Let me show you these. These are pretty cool. Once every few months, I get bags and bags. Let me show you of nuts. I get a big bag of walnuts. I get a big bag of raw cashews. I get a big bag of raw almonds, and I end up just taking a small handful, little bit of each, And I put them into these little snack baggies, and I put them with a dried wasabi tea. And it adds a little bit because there's no salt or anything. So the dried wasabi pea, or you can even just add just a little pinch of wasabi in there, and a little bit of some pepper, and a little bit of garlic even, and it just flavors it. And he takes these little baggies with him wherever he goes during the days, and he gets one per day. So he can have it with his cocktail at night, or he can take it earlier in the day if he has a long drive, or he'll take it into his office when he's doing some work. And he'll just use that as one of his little snacks during the day. If you have a tough digestive system that's a little irritable, probably not the best idea for you, and you might want to ask your dietitian for an alternative. But sometimes I'll do the oyster mushrooms as a snack. Sometimes I'll take some broccoli and I'll cut it up and I'll stick it in the air fryer with a little bit of olive oil and some Celtic salt and garlic and pepper. I love broccoli in the air fryer. It's so good. Okay, so now I'm going to add the tomatoes. Again, I like a lot of tomatoes. I try and use the cherry tomatoes if I can. I also wanted to show you another option that you can get, some organic tomatoes in a jar. If you do get them in a can, we really don't prefer them in a can. I'd rather you get them fresh if you can versus a can. But if you can't, then also a jar. But make sure your can says BPA free and non-GMO and all that jazz. It's all about whatever you can do to make things healthier. And I know if you're shopping sometimes at the dollar store and things like that, you don't have as much of a choice. I know some dollar stores have a great freezer department. And so that's why when I have my spinach, I got my spinach from the dollar store. And this was in the freezer section of the dollar store. And I actually stocked up on them because spinach is so good for you. And what I do to thaw it out, because a lot of times you don't want to just stick it in frozen, you can, but I'll usually, with the bag intact, is I'll put it in a pot of water just sitting in the sink, and I just let it sit there for about an hour and it softens. So I'm just going to put a bag of the spinach in there. Chopped spinach, whole leaves. It's really up to you. You can make this really your own recipe, something that is personalized to what you love. But this is looking, I don't know if you can see, but this is looking pretty good. All of this mixture, I mean, even without the cream, this is just, I absolutely love this dish. And you don't even need the cream in it at all. And you don't even need the fish. It's just a nice dish. You can pour over some zucchini noodles. You can eat it just as it is, just in a bowl, makes for a nice lunch. But I'm going to let that cook a little bit. I'm going to add some of my favorite spices. So I'm going to add some oregano. If you have fresh oregano, that's great. We had someone on one of our lives that was talking about growing oregano in their garden. And I think that's even better. If I had a green thumb, that's something I would love to do. But nope. And again, more garlic. I know, as if I didn't add enough garlic, but
Is that garlic? That garlic
yeah,
powder?
I add just a tiny bit of garlic powder. I know it's probably not necessary, but a little redundant. But I think it's a little force of habit. And then I know we're all trying to reduce our sodium, and especially I'm going to call out Morton's. This type of salt is really not that healthy, for you. That's why I also talk about the canned items, not necessarily the best salt for you. Even the processed milks, even the ones that are the healthier processed milks, the Califia, the foragers, they still have salt in it. And it's not the really good, full of minerals type salt, raw, natural. Celtic salt, we even had a cardiologist was on, it was one of our broadcasts, and he was talking about how Celtic salt was one of the healthiest things you can buy. And then we also had, maybe that was Dr. Michael Danziger, actually. He wrote the famous Tufts University diabetes reversal program, and he's really into nutrition, very well versed and what's good and what's bad. If you're in Massachusetts or in Florida, you actually have access to his diabetes reversal program covered by insurance. In Florida, it's covered by Medicare, and in Massachusetts, their diabetes reversal program is covered by most of the insurance in Massachusetts. And he is looking to expand. It just takes time to have your medical license approved for every single state. But I'm going to add just a sprinkling of salt. My dad doesn't even, when we took my dad off of salt, what we did was we got him on Mrs. Dash for a while. And especially, I love the lemon pepper Mrs. Dash. It is fantastic on fish. So when we do the halibut on the grill, all I do is I put a little bit of avocado spray on them, and I literally lather them in the Mrs. Dash lemon pepper. And it is absolutely delicious. It is absolutely delicious. So this is still sauteing. This is doing a pretty good job. I don't know. I hope you can see, what I'm doing here. I'm going to just go ahead and pin my screen so I can make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. And you can see in here, look how good this looks. I mean, so many different colors. I'm going to be like the Food Network. Oh, so many beautiful colors in here. But it does make it look a little bit more appealing. Lots of colors, lots of textures. If you're not a big texture person, you probably won't like mushrooms, so you can leave out the mushrooms. Not necessary in this dish. I'm not even sure that in a traditional Tuscan chicken dish that they use mushrooms. I'll have to go look. I think that I'm obsessed with mushrooms. Every type of mushroom on this planet, I absolutely love. I'm just going to let that cook a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit of this cream in here. Oh yeah. Look at how liquidy it is. I mean, it is not grainy at all. Yeah, it is. It's really good. Really good. And with all the garlic that's in here, you need a little extra sweetness. So I'm going to let that cook. Normally, I try and let this cook as much as possible and cook down, because I like the tomatoes to get a little bit softer and a lot of the juices to flow into the sauce. And the mushrooms still need to cook up a little bit. So while that is cooking, what do you guys think? Do you have any questions for me as we're going along? Oh yeah, so Thomas says, so Thomas, you love Celtic salt as well. You can get that in the UK?
Yes, I don't know where I get it from. I buy it online by the kilo. But that's it. So that's how I get it in the UK. Do you know where Celtic salt comes from?
Well, let's see if I can read the back of this.
Cheating. That's cheating.
I'm going to cheat. Where is this actually from? Subtle flavor. Okay. Unlike ordinary table salts, Celtic sea salt also provides potassium, magnesium, and other trace minerals. What was interesting is that my dad's dietitian, his functional medicine practitioner, actually in this case, they're two different people, said that because he had low sodium, actually, that he needed to get this salt, that this salt was different than other salts, because you're really truly getting the power of the minerals, that big punch of minerals. And if you have any sort of deficiency in magnesium or potassium or the like, this might be a good option to talk to your doctor about. Especially, we always suggest getting a dietitian and making sure that if you get our book, Food for Thought, you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on, I think it's $20. You can also get a free version online, and you can print out certain pages, and you can write down questions to ask your dietitian. And it's really important to go into your dietitian and maximize the time that you have with the critical questions that make a difference in your day, so that you can walk out of there with something tangible. There are so few dietitians that are available for patients, more patients than there are dietitians, way more patients, and they just don't have enough time. to see everyone. And if you do get in to see a dietitian, you might see them once and then you're not going to see them for maybe 6 months to a year. And so what you want to do is really think about, what are your daily habits? What are your non-negotiables? What are those daily rituals that you have in cooking and eating? And write them all down. Tick off the non-negotiables, and then ask the dietitian, say, this is my norm. How can I make my daily eating habits healthier? And so that's really important. And then you're going to have something tangible to walk away with versus their textbook template, worksheets that they're going to give you, and their, template or textbook, go eat Mediterranean, or go eat the Dean Ornish diet, or go all vegan. And they'll just give you something generic, but it's not that easy to do. And I love the Dean Ornish book, but it's about this thick. And it's hard to break 70 to 80 years, even 40 years, with habits. I have to say hello. Come here. Come here. I have my dogs. My dogs just got home. They're absolutely beautiful. They were groomed today. They are absolutely beautiful. So they're hopefully during this, before the end of the broadcast, I'll be able to pick 1 or 2 of them up so you can see how beautiful they look. Yes, dogs are in my kitchen. Do not come to my house for dinner. You might get a piece of fur or 2. This is just the reality of cooking at home and loving animals. I'm sure our friend Douglas knows what that's like. He has a beautiful baby girl, Stella, and I'm sure he's had a little piece of Stella in his meal. Here's one. There's one. Oh, there she is. Oh, and I'm gonna get kisses in the face. There she is. Isn't she beautiful? This is Chardonnay.
She's beautiful.
So
I
beautiful.
know, you're such a good girl. Okay, I promise I'll wash my hands. Okay. Yeah. I did. I washed my hands. So we're all good. You're not going to be grossed out. And everyone wants his dinner. And so this is their dinner time. Actually, 50 minutes past their dinner time. So you might get a little bit of, I know, he's talking to me. Do you want your dinner? Is that what you want? That's what you want? I don't know how far you can see with me going over. I have to get them the dinner. And let's go ahead and give you all dinner. There you go. Okay. So they have their dinner. They are happy. Okay, so while that's cooking, we're gonna go ahead and see if we can get the strawberries, the chocolate covered strawberries going. So again, the bottom of my pan here, I just put a little scoop of some coconut oil. Use a little bit of organic coconut oil. I have my very, very, very dark chocolate, 75% cacao. You can even put in some raw cacao and it makes it even healthier. I usually prefer, when I have more time, I usually like to put in the raw cacao and then just supplement it with a few of these. Maybe I'll lead by example and go ahead and do it. And what I get is the Terrasol Superfoods cacao powder. This is cold pressed, organic, non-GMO, but it is a superfood, and cacao contains one of the highest concentrations of minerals and magnesium of any food on the planet. Raw cacao powder is the healthiest alternative to conventional high processed Dutch cocoa. And this one in particular is finely ground from high quality cold pressed cacao beans. So it uses few filters, no sweeteners, nothing like that. So it's all natural.
Kym, where do you buy that?
I get it on Amazon. A lot of the stuff that we get is on Amazon.
Because I'm wondering, even that Celtic salt, you could probably get that on Amazon too,
We get
right?
the Celtic salt. Yeah, I get the Celtic salt on Amazon.
Okay.
And you can get it. I make sure you do get it finely ground. It's a lot easier to use.
Okay.
Thomas was going to tell us about Celtic salt, where it was from and everything.
Yeah,
Well,
Thomas, did you Google it for us?
No, I've known for quite some time. It was one of the selling points was the curiosity, because it may not be obvious, but I have Irish in my heritage. So I had my formative years in Ireland. So Celtic, obviously the Celts, the Scottish, the Irish, and so on. And so that's why I thought Celtic salt. And how come I've never come across it? And I'm of the Celts. So it was I think they escaped. They moved through England, I think, but it was Celts who moved to northern France. I think it might be Brittany, could be Normandy, but I think Brittany. And it's how it's harvested as well that's curious, so or intriguing. They so it's in northern France. I think it's Brittany, but you can Google it. You can Google it. But it is sea salt. And so they break the sea into sections. So they have these like fields, I'm going to say fences or walls close to the seabed on the shore. And so when the tide goes out, it leaves the seawater in these mini fields or compartmented areas. And then with the heat of the sun, it dries out the salt, and they harvest the dried salt from the sea. And so, as opposed to rock salt, and so that I found fascinating. And as far as I know, that's the only in northern France is the only place that uses that method to harvest sea salt. So I think that's what makes it unique and special. Apart from the fact that, as you say, it has more minerals and trace elements in it than any other kind of salt. But I don't, mine isn't finely ground. Mine is quite coarse and damp, as is quite typical of Celtic salt as well. So if I'm going to sprinkle a salt that I want a bit finer, I'll typically use pink Himalayan salt for that. So where I'd use the Celtic salt mainly would be in something like a stew where I'd be dissolving the salt. But if I wanted to crunch or sprinkle the salt, I'd use Himalayan. That's it. That's me and salt. Oh, and in terms of trace elements, obviously neither the Himalayan salt nor the Celtic contain the iodine, which is quite typically added to typical table salt, or economy table salt, however you categorize that. And I think there's something like they've counted 85 important trace elements in Celtic salt, as opposed to, I think, maybe 55 in Himalayan salt, but they're both streets ahead of typical table salt, which I think is about 17, 20, something like that. Now, that is it, me. That's me and salt.
Wow. Thank you.
That was a really great education.
Yeah.
I love that you are so well versed in it. That's fantastic. And I always encourage people that, as you're making these dietary choices, it's really fun to research and find out so much more about some of these ingredients and the power that they have in helping to make you healthier. The last week in our Food for Thought series, we ended up, which was awesome, we learned about bitter melon and the power of bitter melon. And it's not available in a lot of places over here. It's available over in Asia, widespread. It's used in a lot of dishes, and it's been used for many, many years in ancient medicine. It's been even proven in certain studies to be incredibly heart healthy. And it's been proven to lower the A1C. Now, I'm not clear exactly how the quantity that really makes a difference, but the fact that it does help, and it can be an extra ingredient that you can feel good about, then why not add it? But research it, read the studies, learn more, learn how to make it taste better. If you don't like it, it's very bitter. And there are a lot of healthy ingredients that don't necessarily taste that great. You have to learn how to cook them. And I was even thinking, I'm curious what you all think. I was thinking of doing a show where everyone can tell us ahead of time what they don't like, what healthy item don't they like that they would be willing to learn how to make something in which they could potentially like that particular item. For example, I never used to like mushrooms. I never used to like tomatoes, but I found ways in which I was okay with them and that I could tolerate them first. And then I built into actually liking them. And Douglas says, no raw fish. So he wants to learn how to make raw fish healthier. Well, Douglas, my simple tip for that is the more wasabi, the better. A little bit of coconut aminos, add in, or tamari, add in lots of wasabi, and you will not dip the fish in it. You won't taste a thing at all. You'll only taste the heat. That's pretty much it.
Kim, my problem is oatmeal. I don't like oatmeal.
I don't, you know what? I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. For some people, oats can actually be inflammatory. And they even suggest steel cut oats versus regular rolled oats as being, more heart healthy. And so for my dad, what we do is, and I could show you before I unpackage my fish, is
I keep hearing how good it is, how I should be eating it, and it's like I just can't do it.
well, it adds, some fiber. And so I'll give you kind of how we started eating it. So see this little baggie here? And we have literally, about 20 of these baggies in here, just like the nuts. Once a month, once every few months, I'll put in just a small scoop of steel cut oats and a small scoop of rolled oats. And then I'll add in a scoop of raw cacao. I'll put in a scoop of hemp seeds. I'll put in a scoop of, I put in a scoop of collagen. And I put in a scoop of naked creatine. My younger brother makes us use this. It's supposed to be really good. I also put in, so we have a spice grinder. And so we grind up our chia seeds because I think they're easier to digest, especially if you have some gut problems. So we just go ahead and we grind up, we put a scoopful of chia seeds. And then I also grind up some flax seeds. We don't use as much flax anymore because I'm allergic. What am I not allergic to? Celery water. That's pretty much it. But you can go ahead and grind that up in the spice grinder and put a little bit of that in there and then heat it up. You could even use some of this, put a little bit of water in it, just enough to get it soft, and then add a little bit of this walnut milk that you can hand type, put in the fridge, make it maybe once a week. And that really helps. Then add a whole bunch of blueberries. There are studies out there that show the power of blueberries. Blueberries are so healthy. And they say having 1 to 2 cups of blueberries a day could really make a difference in your blood. So you can look at those studies online. They're out there. But add a couple of those blueberries in there. Strawberries make everything taste better. You can slice up a strawberry or two. You can even add a little bit of honey on top of it, which makes it just taste a little bit healthier. I also have a little cheat once in a while. It's called Sapjack, Sapjack. It's expensive. You can find, cheaper versions. It's just what we can get over here. But it's a raw, natural, just maple. It's maple only, and it is aged in a bourbon barrel. So we add sometimes just a tiny drizzle. And what we do, what we're talking about, we're not trying to be 100% healthy. We're trying to be real. We're trying to make step by step our lives and our meals just a little bit healthier and healthier and healthier each and every time. Sometimes it takes the transition, right? We talked about those items that you don't like. Well, how do you make yourself like them? You can't just force them down overnight and just say, yay, I like them. No, you're not going to look forward to that. We're human. We have cravings, right? So just try to step by step make things a little healthier. Of course, everything is better raw, whole, and that's it. But again, we're human. We like to be creative. We need something different once in a while. We don't always have the time to chop vegetables. We don't have the money to go to the store and buy a bunch of vegetables already chopped. So we need to have a compromise here. And like for me with this particular meal, this is a great compromise because I can make it one night. And I do this with all of my meals. I try to make the meals so that I can have half one night and then not the next night, but the next night. So every other night, I will
Right.
have some sort of duplicate meal. And
Right.
it makes it so much easier. But back to the oatmeal, if you want the actual recipe for what we do, it's not perfectly measured, but you can get our food for thought book. It's again, it's on
I got
Amazon.
I think I
It's on,
got it.
it's actually in there. It's one of my dad's favorites. He used to eat Cheerios, and General Mills makes Cheerios, and General Mills has those commercials that promote it as being heart healthy.
Mhm.
And they're very, very slick in how they actually
Yeah.
state it, but they are actually, my dad's actually yelling at me while we're live on YouTube as I'm cooking his dinner because my voice is very loud and it resonates. And no one can think in my house. He can actually hear all the way across the house. So when I'm on Saturdays over in my office and I'm actually doing our live broadcast of our radio show,
Mhm.
he can hear me clear outside on the other side of the house while he's sitting on the deck having his coffee. And I'm not even yelling. I literally, my voice just resonates. So
Mhm.
you guys are always more than happy. I mean, I tell him, I say, Dad, you've got to tell me if I'm loud because I just do not hear it. I
Uh-huh.
don't because I'm not yelling. My voice, it just carries. So I apologize if I'm blasting all the way through. But I have a very loud voice.
I'm hard of hearing, so
Oh, good. So it works for you. Okay, so there's my oatmeal. Look in the food for thought book, and you'll see that in there. I'd love for you to give it a try. I can always send you a few of ours if you wanted to try them, or
I
maybe when I'm to North Carolina at some point, I'll make you breakfast.
okay. Well, I'm thinking too, those wild the blueberries from Maine that you can get at Walmart's in the bag, the wild Maine blueberries, they might be good with it too, to try that. So
Oh yeah, the wild blueberries would be really, really good actually
I
in
mean
there.
Walmart sells that big bag. It's like $12, but it will last you so long. And they taste so good. They're like dessert. They're so sweet. So
Oh yeah. Because we've talked so long, my chocolate is hardened. So we got to add a little bit of coconut oil to soften it up.
mhm.
This is Kym's kitchen. Kym can't cook.
So
So
you
we're just gonna be
talk-
real.
you put in the cacao oil, the powder, and what else did you put in it?
I put in some oat milk chocolate chips that
Okay.
are 75%, I think it is cacao.
Okay.
And so the higher the level of cacao, the better, which
Okay.
is that's really important. And you want to make sure, I always look for the ones that have the I try to do ones that have less sugar than others, or even no sugar. This one in particular has what's that it's that Buddha fruit. I call it Buddha fruit. That you can that they get. It has the I think erythritol in it to make it a little bit sweeter, but I use that. Um, those chocolate chips. I just need a pair of scissors so I can open my fish. And we can get that in there. Okay, we have one. Just gonna rinse it off. I just put, I'm just gonna show you. I don't do a lot to my fish before I put it in here. I could say just like it just soak up all of the flavor in here, but I do put a little bit of salt just on the top. And then I'm going to place it in here. A little bit of salt on the top. And then I'm going to grab my other one. My kitchen has actually, it was so nice and controlled a little bit earlier. And now it is completely exploded. And okay, a tiny bit here. There we go. I'm going to place that in there. Tiny bit on here. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of pepper on each one. And I'm going to, I like a little heat in mine. So I'm going to add some chili flakes over it. And then I'm going to cover it. And in just a few minutes, we are going to go ahead and turn those over. I don't like, usually it takes about 8 minutes to cook, to cook the fish. And then it's ready to serve. I'm grabbing the strawberries in the meantime. And I like to let this, cool down just a tiny bit, not much. You just don't want it bubbling and boiling, which is really important. Okay. So I am going to put the strawberries over here. I'm going to pour my liquid into a little bowl. And I'm going to get some water into this very quickly. Trust me, if you don't, you will regret it later. So I get it into the sink with a little bit of water. Oh, you can hear a little sizzle. Okay, let's see if I can make this look. I don't have any of my little tongs with me. Usually you want to get a pair of little tongs. And of course I didn't prepare for that. So we are just going to use my fingers. And we're just going to quickly, these are frozen. So I'm just going to dip them into, that's a little warm. Yes, I do have them. Ah, goodness, I got my tongs. So I'm going to just go ahead and take it. I'm just going to pour a little bit on top there. Take another strawberry. Dip it in. Let it sit. Flip it over. When you watch the ones on YouTube, they look so much prettier than mine. And there's another one. I don't know if you can see my strawberries.
Ooh.
They're really good. And I have a really big sweet tooth. And that was one of the hardest things for me to give up in being both gluten-free and dairy-free. And also my dad was a really big lover of ice cream, loved ice cream, loved especially those cones. And I've had to, we grew up having something sweet after dinner, and these chocolate covered strawberries, and you can even do a bowl of chocolate covered blueberries. And even I do a forager yogurt and even add a little bit of forager yogurt, which is really good. I think my dog has found a few scraps of I'm not sure what on the floor. Okay, we're gonna get this strawberry out. We're about ready to turn the fish, so I gotta get these strawberries done very quickly. Gotta get them turned. I don't know if you guys have any tips or tricks for, making, satisfying that sweet tooth in a little bit of a diabetic friendly way that you might share with us. Another thing that you can do instead of regular whipped cream is you can get a little bit of, coconut cream. As I said, we're not looking, anytime you're looking at any sort of sugar or anything like that, you're not necessarily looking at something healthy. You're looking at trying to make it healthier. And so, I'm going to go ahead and use my fingers. So much easier. There we go. And I'm going to just, because I have very little, I didn't measure all the way. So this last one is going to be kind of half covered, half not. And it's really good.
One of
Really
your
good.
guests, one of your guests a few weeks ago, put it down, and I think you probably shared my disappointment, in relation to monk fruit as a sweetener.
That's the
That
one, monk fruit. Yeah.
that a lot of erythritol,
Yep.
uh,
Erythritol.
and it can thicken the blood, I think. So increased risk of clotting, I think, it was a guest on your show was
Yes, it was
saying.
Michael Danzinger, and that's it. He didn't really like it that much. So, I mean, in this case, I just had a little bit of the ones left. So I had gotten them before the show,
Mhm.
and so I'm just finishing up the package, but
That's
it
what
has a
I'm.
little bit of monk fruit in it. But yes, you're right.
That,
And more
that's what I.
natural, you can make it less processed, a little bit of maple syrup that's raw, natural. If you do need some sweetener, a little bit of honey, but don't cook your honey because it can be toxic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, don't ever cook your honey. I don't like those recipes where they cook the honey. Okay, so this is the last bit. We're gonna go ahead. Oh, it smells really good. Don't you love that when people are cooking on TV and you can't smell it and they're like, "Ooh, it smells really good." Well, it does.
You're so
Um,
descriptive. You're so descriptive that I can almost taste it. I
yeah.
can. It's so good.
You can see I have it buried actually in here. So it's just all mixed in. And sometimes I'll leave it whole, but other times, I like to actually fish for my fish. Really didn't mean it to come out like that, but I like to actually chop it up once it's cooked a little bit. I like to cut it into smaller chunks, little quarter inch to inch chunks, so
I,
that
I,
I get a little bit of a chunk, with every single bite. I mean, you could do that. You could
if you want,
argue that you
if
can
you want, if
take
you
a
want to
little bit
chunk,
of it. I'm sorry,
if
Thomas.
if you want to chunk with every of fish with every bite, it's got to be stargazy pie, surely. Do you know
Yeah.
stargazy pie?
Nope.
Oh, well, you
I
probably
love that
haven't
you're
got.
so full of. We should have you narrate these things because you are a wealth of knowledge. I love
Well,
it.
stargazy pie, I have to say, I'm not even vegetarian, but I find it's called stargazy pie because it's a fish pie effectively, and most of the fish is within the pie, so under the crust, but the heads of the fish are looking up through the crust at the sky. So it's a fish pie where the fish heads are sticking out of the pie, looking up at the sky, hence stargazy pie. Google it
Okay.
and have a look at images. So I
I
wasn't entirely serious. I never have, and I'm not sure I could sit down to a stargazy pie. I, not so far anyway.
I don't think I could do the fish looking right back up at me.
No. Not gonna happen. Mm.
But thanks for describing it. And, you get if you really like the bite of fish with every single, scoop, then the stargazy pie is
Yeah,
the way to
well, you can feel like a star and say that they're looking at you, and you'll chase the fish all the stronger.
go.
Kym, are you gonna feed your dad now?
Am I going to what?
Feed your father.
I think that we are going to probably end this a little early. He probably is not quite ready to eat. So I'm going to take this off just a little bit early before it's actually done. I'm going to show you, what it looks like and kind of what we do. And I mean, it's just a little bit, it's not pretty. I don't make anything pretty. If you want to make it look prettier, put a little parsley on top.
You know what I bet would
That's
be
what the
good on
pros do.
top? I buy sprouts and broccoli sprouts. Do you ever buy sprouts? I put sprouts in a lot of different things. My sandwiches and things are really good for you. The microgreens.
Yeah.
And that would good to sprinkle on top. I bet you it would make it look prettier.
For me, it's all about the flavor. I will never be that person that's going to be able to cook pretty, but I
It
want to
does,
see,
though. It does
want
look
to
good.
taste it and get, just a little.
Good.
I love it. And I'd even add a little bit of heat. I think the red chili flakes make all the difference. And I also think the small cherry tomatoes make all the difference. And I would even add more of those because I would love a cherry tomato with every single bite. Like they're really that good and they burst, especially, with so much flavor. So this is all done. It's all ready to go. I'll probably end up once I'm off here, I'm gonna cut it into the chunks and go ahead and just store it. It's not quite cooked through. And so just so I can reheat it later and it's not going to be dried out for when I'm
Right.
actually ready to serve. And this is if that's important for anyone, you cook when you have time. If you have some time, don't always wait till up until that point where you're going to serve. If you have an hour, just go ahead and cook when you have time to cook. And a lot of times I'll use a crock pot or my Instapot and I'll just leave it on slow cook, throughout the day. Because I'll sometimes have time while I'm just having a cup of coffee and just kind of waking up and I can throw a few things in the crock pot. This is also a great Instapot dish because you can dump put a little bit of the olive oil or avocado spray at the bottom so it doesn't stick. And then you actually can use, and this is a tip if you don't want to use the white wine, I use this instead. You can use some vegetable stock, organic vegetable stock, or
Mhm.
some organic chicken stock. And you can put that in the bottom. The veggie stock, especially if you want to do more vegetarian, you can also use a tempeh in here instead of the fish. So if you want to go full vegan, like you can completely go full vegan on this and just use a tempeh or a tofu. I don't prefer tofu because I think it's way too processed. Tempeh is a little bit less processed. You can still see some of the grains in it. So I think the lesser of two evils. But I would definitely think about doing that. If you need to add a little bit of protein, extra protein, if you go vegan, is I use hemp hearts for a little extra
I like.
protein.
Mhm.
And you can sprinkle it. I actually just sprinkled it on the salads today for lunch, but
I-
it's actually something you can also make prettier. And you can even use it to help make a crust, and you can just sprinkle it right on top.
Mhm.
And so hemp seeds are a really good option.
Yeah.
This is 10 grams of protein and 12 grams of omegas 3 and 6.
Yeah, I
So
put it.
it's worth having that inside, your cupboard too. And so these little additions, and sometimes, to our sauce, I might add, we have this, I try to get a little bit of the collagen and MCT in every single day. And so I use the designs I can't really see. Designs for Health
What's the-
Collagen,
What's the name of it?
collagen and MCT from Designs for Health. But
Design.
before you do any sort of supplementation, it's really good to ask your dietitian or your functional medicine practitioner, your pharmacist, your cardiologist, vascular specialist, is this right for me? Is there any contraindication with my medications or my presentation of disease? My dad and I have been very lucky that our healthcare system provided us with a dietitian who has a PhD. And so she's just above and beyond skilled and in the know of all of these different supplements. And she was able to give us the advanced blood work that was covered by our insurance, which worked out really well. She knew how to work the system to get the right things for us so she could end up customizing a lot of these supplements for our particular needs. And so sometimes what I'll do, like in a sauce like this, you can add a little bit if you're told to have a little bit of collagen powder, or you're told to have a little bit of creatine. You can actually mix it into a sauce like this, and you're not going to be able to taste it, but you'll still get the benefits. But normally what I do is I wait till it's just about done, because I don't want it sitting there simmering, cooking in the high heat. So I wait till it's done and I'm about ready to serve, and then I'll last minute, I will mix it in and serve it, which I still may do. I'm not quite sure yet. Give me an hour when we're ready to eat and I'll make that decision then. But I'm just fly by the seat of my pants. I'm real. My kitchen is a complete disaster. This is who I am. And I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me before we sign off, I'm happy to answer questions, or if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to be the peanut gallery and make fun of my my antics. We've had quite a few follies.
Did great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kym.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And we also want to do a shout out to Robert Castleberry and the Pad Life Outdoors. I didn't mean to go live on his channel today as well. So to all of his followers, I hope you enjoyed my cooking. We are going to get Robert Castleberry cooking for his Pad Life Outdoors very soon. So maybe this is just a to be announced of what's to come, on his channel as well. So we're simulcasting on the Way to My Heart's channel and Robert Castleberry's Pad Life Outdoors channel. So I hope he doesn't mind. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And please go ahead, comment in the comment section what more you'd like to see. If you'd also like to share your recipe, everyone and anyone can do better than what I did in my kitchen. Anyone can actually be more slick and more savvy in the kitchen than me. So game on. Show me your stuff. Show us your favorite recipes. Show us your favorite healthier hacks in the kitchen. We love it. We would absolutely love it. So thank you everyone for joining us. Remember, the advice and views offered in this program are that of me. You need to make sure before you act on any information that's provided in this particular episode of PADdy's Plate, go ahead and ask your healthcare provider for explicit permission to ensure that it's right for you in your presentation of disease. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, Kym.
Bye, you guys.